Hi, everyone. Welcome to this edition of the Human School's Curation Corner, just one part of our learning journey here at the Human School. I'm Randy.
And I'm Chad.
In each episode here of the Curation Corner, we engage in brief conversations that are focused on a specific resource. First, we're going to summarize the author's ideas. Then, we're going to make connections to our experiences. And finally, we'll share some insights that further our learning. In this episode, we're chatting about the article, The Secret Ingredient of Thriving Companies, Human Magic, by Hubert Joly. Test out my French there. He's the former CEO of Best Buy and a lecturer at the Harvard Business School. If you're interested in this article, you can find a link below in the video at thehuman.school. All right, so what's the author saying? I think his big point is this. Carrots and sticks don't lead to human magic. Now, what is human magic? He really never quite defines what human magic is, but there's this quote that I think pretty much captures it. When people can be their best, biggest, and most beautiful version of themselves. So this idea of human magic, he goes on to outline 6 elements that he says come together in a mixture of things to create human magic. Those 6 things are meaning, authentic human connection, psychological safety, autonomy, a learning environment, and growth. And so the connection that I was making here was really to the objector mindset. Joly is objecting to traditional top-down directive models of management and suggesting to us that we really frame leadership around this idea of leaders creating the conditions. Creating conditions by that mixing those 6 little elements there that will ultimately end up providing people with the autonomy that they will begin to have this thing that he calls human magic.
Yeah, building off of that, I'm thinking too about the book Resonant Leadership. And one of the things that they talk about is this idea of being a mindful leader. And initially, the context of that word in 2022 is, around meditation and things like that. But the author clarifies that mindfulness is about being present with your employees and about being aware of what's going on around you and how important that is when it comes to creating the conditions for effective leadership and whatever the company intention is to be able to move towards that. So similarly here, this idea of being aware of what it is that your staff is looking for, what they're interested in, is something that he worked hard at with Best Buy and trying to make sure that he saw people for who they were at an individual level, but that there was an interplay between what they were looking for, their own goals, and then also the company's goals. And he made them the same thing. That is an incredibly powerful tactic in order to get people to be more productive. And I thought that his point about financial incentives not being really impactful was really interesting, especially as an educator when we talk about things like merit-based pay and how so few people get into education for the financial incentive of it. And so it seems like in places that it's been tried, it doesn't have the impact that they expect, but it's also not motivating for the staff. And so there's a misunderstanding there of the people who find it worthwhile, maybe business people or politicians, but if you actually are mindful of the staff and the employees and what it is that educators want, it's not more money in order to be more productive, quote unquote. And so I think that point that he makes too about financial incentives being less effective than people think that they are really made me think about, as a teacher, that kind of misalignment and misunderstanding oftentimes about improving education as well, the importance of being aware of what it is that your employees want.
There's this line, I'm going to read it real quickly, that he shared: authentic human connection starts with treating and valuing everyone as an individual and making sure everyone feels they belong, which is the very heart of diversity and inclusion. And the thing that I really thought a lot about there is that I think this is one of the things that we get fundamentally wrong in talking about diversity, equity, inclusion conversations. There tends to be this hyper focus on creating programs and structures, and maybe creating some better conditions, but we often lose sight of the fact that the heart of this work is that people have to feel seen, heard, and valued within any given context. And so any DEI work that's done without that in place it's doomed to fail, right? I mean, and so part of it is like this feeling that people have of losing something. And in reality, it's about ensuring that everyone has gained something through this conversation, right? And in thinking about our work at the Human School, this really it connected with me thinking about the role of contexts and how if you're focused on the individuals and this human magic that he refers to, then this is not something that you can just pick up and move from company to company or place to place. That the context really matters. And in thinking about the inventor compass point, how much the context of a place, because of the people being so unique and perfect in and of themselves, that's the important part. So to get it right, and I'll put the word right in quotes, we have to acknowledge that each person and each context is really, really different. And so you can't just pick something up and move it. And I think that's something core to our work here at the Human School is, we don't have a blueprint. There's nothing that we're going to give to you and say, like, this is how you do it. There's no one right way. It's the one right way, again, in air quotes, is acknowledging that each person is unique and different, and therefore each context is different. And so I think that's the magic sauce, so to speak.
Yeah, totally agree. So two connections. One, that I think it's interesting. This is a case study of a rather large organization. So you can change large organizations, and you change it by starting first with the people that are in it. And the other connection that I'm making is to the context comment that you made, Chad, and that as leaders, sort of the metaphor of be a chef and not a line cook. And I think we have a lot of line cook leaders, a lot of sort of paint by number leaders. I know that sounds somewhat derogatory, but lovingly derogatory, I suppose, that, we want the checklist. We want to know, what do I do first? What do I do second? And you know what? That's dehumanizing. That's leading, not considering the context, like you said, or the people that you're working with. So be a leader that's a chef. You know that there's a unique mix of ingredients that's going to provide this wonderful flavor for the person that you're serving. And so taking those 6 ingredients, and this I think is my insight, being cautious not to approach those 6 ingredients as like, oh, check, check, check. Yep, we got all those. Okay, where's my human magic? That you have to be the chef and say, like, maybe I need a little bit more of this. Maybe I need a little bit more of that because my people need a little bit more of this or a little bit more of that.
One thing that I was thinking about is you can view complexity as a problem, a barrier, or you can view it as an opportunity and a strength, right? So like one thing I immediately thought of is like a large organization. There are advantages to being a large organization, right? I mean, I think that people assume if you're big or you're small or you're whatever you are, you can see the disadvantages and only focus on them. But there are advantages to being a large organization, which is you have a large wealth of people and uniqueness to tap into, to design from. I mean, and that, whereas if you're a small organization, you have 5 people, you may be somewhat limited by that. So my point here is that, again, to the context conversation, complexity can be viewed as a strength or a weakness. It all depends on the mind shift or the mindset you bring to it.
And just sort of putting a pin in the end of that is, I think, not just context, but that storytelling piece that we talk about with navigating to collectively telling our stories together, as opposed to making them the one-offs or using the top-down model or having the chef be the only or the line cook be the only person telling the story, and then it's a single story, as opposed to allowing it to be complex and seeing your employees as insiders with valuable insights that are part of that collective. And without creating it as a whole, as opposed to that single line or that one hierarchy, you're never going to get there if you don't allow it to be complex.
So one thing that I had a weird physical reaction to the word employee. There is a wondering I have around language there as well, like within a hierarchy of being more human. And is the word employer and employee, is that human-centered language? I don't know that I have a great answer to that. I think it implies a relationship that's probably true. At the same time, does changing that language change a little bit. I don't have an answer there. It's just that it was funny when you use the word employee, it hit me in a different way through the context of this conversation.
That's a great curiosity, and that could lead to asking some more questions and then taking leadership to sort of redefine that. I love that, Chad. All right. Well, I think it's time for us to sort of wrap this episode up. So a little bit of a summary of our insights and connections. First, be a chef and not a line cook. Tweak your ingredients behind human magic to match your particular context, your environment, and you too might just might have human magic. Second, be open to unstructured play and design, as these can lead us to outcomes that we have never previously imagined or considered. And finally, personalize and empower your employees with heart and genuine desire for them to improve and connect. Thanks for learning alongside us here in this episode of the Human School's Curation Corner. And join us in today's conversation in the Learning in Public Hub at thehuman.school or on our YouTube channel. The Human School, by placing humanity at the center of all design, the Human School seeks to share an evolving story of learning and its impact on the world. We can't wait to hear how you are intentionally placing humanity at the center. And if you're interested in additional resources, visit thehuman.school and the Learning in Public Hub, and consider joining the community committed to placing humanity at the center of all design. Bye for now.